before they turned it on.
Oh, cuss first.
Are y'all ready?
Yeah, I'm done cussing.
They are on.
Making sure.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and I'm very sorry about being late. I've been on the Planning Commission for over 10 years now, and this is the first time. It's, I'm a 5-minute drive away. It took me almost a half an hour to get here.
Across railroad tracks, probably.
Yep.
Okay, this time I'd like to open the November 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Amber, would you please call roll?
Wendy Birmingham.
Here.
Robin Bridges.
Here.
Bill Chancellor.
Here.
Jana Jager. Mac Lazenby.
Here.
Marcus Marshall. Warren McCord.
Here.
Nanette Reese. Bob Reitenbaugh.
Here.
Okay, before we start, with the crowd that we have here tonight, I'd like to go over the way we proceed here for this. We'll proceed for this meeting. The commission's going to be presented with some agenda items by the planning staff, and a representative for the agenda item will then have an opportunity to make comments or answer some specific questions, and then I will open a public hearing if it's appropriate. And that'll be your time to address the commission on the agenda item at hand. I'll ask you to keep your talk to about 5 minutes, please. And after everyone has spoken, I will close the public hearing. Then the representative and staff will have an opportunity to answer any of the questions and respond to issues that came up during that hearing. Then we'll open the floor for a vote and some further discussion among the Planning Commission if necessary. And then we're going to have a vote based on state and local laws, the city's comprehensive plan 2030, and for the general good of the community. Also, since we do have a number of subdivision plats that we're going to look at tonight, I'd like to let you know that by Alabama statute, the Municipal Planning Commission is the final approval authority for those plats. And with regards to the subdivision plats, the commission acts as an administrative body and is bound by the limitations that are contained in state laws, the local city zoning ordinance, and the subdivision regulations that this body has previously adopted. While we do have public hearings on most of the plats, we do welcome all public comment on those, please understand that this commission's authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds specific requirements codified in laws and regulations. If you would like to speak during that time, during a public hearing on subdivision plats, I ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes. And finally, I'd like to make the point that except for subdivision plats, the Planning Commission is only an advisory body. So any vote that we take here will be heard again by the City Council at a later date. Okay, so what we have tonight is, before we get started, the first action I'm going to have to, we have a couple of administrative things that we have to take care of, and the first action is I'd like to, the applicant for, is it number 5? The applicant for the final plat Silos at Conway, which is PL 2021-00735, has asked to postpone that item until a date certain. So I'm going to have a vote to pull it out of the consent agenda, and I'll make the motion to postpone to a date certain of 9 December.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, that motion carries. Now, this is the time for citizens' communication, and there are two basic categories if you're interested in speaking at this time. One is anything that's on the consent agenda, and I'll list those here shortly. And then if you have anything that you'd like to talk about that is not on the agenda at all. So if you have any kind of thing that you would like to come speak about, that this will be the time. The consent agenda consists of the meeting minutes for the packet meeting of October 11th, the regular meeting of October 14th. There is an annexations for the Owens Estate, which is PL 2021-00723. And that's it, because we took the second one off of there. So if anybody would like to speak at this time on anything that you would like to speak on or something that's on the consent agenda? All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to old business. Item number 1 is a rezoning from rural to DDH, Old Sanford. This is PL 2021, let's see, we need 00634. Mr. Howell.
Good evening. The first two cases tonight are related. The first is a rezoning request that you just mentioned for this case, which is the base zoning or base rezoning of some property from rural to DDH. The second case immediately after this is the PDD designation application for the same area of land and some additional ones on top of that. For the sake of explanation, I'm going to skip to the second, the PDD case, and talk about that, because that gives you the larger comprehensive understanding of what the applicant is wanting to do. And then we'll go back for the DDH to then briefly explain that and then go to the votes. Okay, so the purpose of that first case is to make all of the property, which was about 885 acres, consistent with itself. The existing land is split zone between rural and DDH, or development district housing. The purpose of that is to then put is the application to then put a planned development district designation over the entirety of it, over that 885 acres. You can see here in the map, the area that's involved is on the northwest side of town, just west of the Camden West and Camden South subdivisions, on the north side of the Sagahatchee Creek, and just south of the Mrs. James Road. Areas outside to the east and south of it are largely residential areas, either zone DDH also, or in some cases CDD. And then if you move to the west, you're in areas that are unincorporated Lee County. They are inside the future, the growth boundary, however, currently are not inside the city. Here's a picture of aerial. You can see that it's undeveloped as of right now. It includes areas that run along Mrs. James Road to the north, with the exception of 3 existing residential lots that are not part of this, that you can see in the inconsistent length of Mrs. James Road, and then continues to the lands that are immediately south of Camden Ridge as well. This was the original master development plan rendering that was provided by the applicant. This was included in your packets. It was also a part of your staff review for last month's planning commission before the applicant requested for it to be tabled. As a result of the comments that were included in the packet from last month, the applicant has submitted just recently an updated master development plan, largely consistent with this, that did address many of the staff comments and recommendations. And this is the new submission for the master development plan. I'll leave that on the screen just for a little while so y'all can take a look at it. It involves 885 acres, like we just discussed. It includes 9 residential phases with a combined 1,552 dwelling units of predominantly single family with some townhomes, at a 24-acre amenity site, a limited commercial area in the center, a future school on the northwest corner, and 2 parks, 2 specific parks that are arranged along the southern boundary next to the Sagahatchee Creek. Gross density of the development would be approximately 1.8 dwelling units an acre, which is significantly below the requested base zoning district would allow. And individual phases within the here range from little over 2 dwelling units an acre, the further out from the center of the development, to a maximum of 4.19 dwelling units for the phases that are more centrally located. That central location is the intersection shown between 2 collector roads that they have planned, one going one going north-south in the middle of phases 1, 2, and 3, to a T intersection with their largely east-west collector moving along where the mouse is moving there. All individual phases take connection either directly to one of those 2 collector roads or through one of the other phases that are in between the 2. Let's see. Construction over time would begin in January 2023 and end in November 2036, as shown on the master development plan. Obviously, that timeline is very much subject. If this were to be approved, that timeline would be very subject to the demands of the market as well as the developers' timelines as well. But that gives a general idea that this development would take about 14 years to build out from the initiation of the first building permits. As part of this revised master development plan, the applicant did include a cap to the number of homes that they would plan to build per year. The cap that they are providing in there, that they've proposed in their master development, the new master development plan, would be 170 homes a year. Based on the MDP schedule, we can kind of extrapolate out the different amounts per year, what we could expect if the unlikely event happened where the schedule occurred as it actually is written. And based on the MDP schedule, annual homes would generally range from between 66 homes a year at its lowest, up to 148 homes at its highest per year. And so the 170 homes per year proposed cap does have the applicant has built in some cushion for themselves for that. It is worth noting that if they build to their cap for all 14, or for the entirety of the development, the development would probably be built out within less than 9 years instead of 14 years. So that would generally be a reduction of almost a third of its development time. One of the interesting notes about this, based on the existing land, based on the existing zoning, which the majority of which would be rural, and allows lots no less than 3 acres in size. The density that would then allow to be built out is not too different from what they are proposing, based on the fact that they are proposing densities well underneath the 5.5 dwelling units an acre allowed in DDH. The difference that that this would be most quickly felt is the time that this would create. You could generally expect with the current zoning based on growth trends and what the city's projections are for continued development and pressure in the area, without any rezoning, you would expect to see a maximum build out of all land up there at generally about the 2080 mark. This particular development, if approved, even though it does have a very similar total number of homes, it would result in a build out of 44 years sooner, generally around the 2036 mark. And so this would definitely pick up the pace of development in that area. One of the staff comments from the first submission was that the outer loop needed to be shown on the master development plan. The current major street plan that identifies all future roads and main connectors throughout the city shows the outer loop in this area following the property boundary that represents this development's this development's western boundary. And so it actually, even though they are showing it in this master development plan, the major street plan actually has it along the boundary where the green and the yellows and the purples generally end. That represents the property line, and that represents where we have it represented in our major street plan. And this is a significant point to point out, because as it's shown here, it is actually outside of this outside of this PDD, which is currently out in the county and not in the city. It's also not attached to the development, which would protract the anticipated build time, which currently the city is still unsure as far as when this would actually be buildable. And this would, if this is approved, this development, and if the outer loop follows the major street plan, it has the potential to speed that process up. If this is approved as it's shown here, outside of the PDD, that timeline would still be indefinite. Let me back myself up here. As part of their proposed master development plan, they are including requests for incentives and exchanges. PDDs are allowed up to 2 incentives in a request, and they have requested an increase in ISR by 20% for residential lots. Staff included a comment that regarded the preferable isolation of certain townhomes and smaller lots that are included in staff conditions to generally focus that incentive at staff's recommendation. They also are requesting a reduction of residential front setbacks to 10 feet. This is a similar reduction that's utilized over in Woodward Oaks. Staff does not necessarily have an issue with that request. However, we are requesting that those be limited to those homes that would use rear or side loaded garage that are recessed from the front, so that the garage would not be 10 feet from the home. In their updated master development plan, they did speak to that and did acknowledge that. For their exchanges, every incentive that they provide, they have to provide an exchange. For their exchanges, they included a 20-foot vegetative buffer around the entirety of the development, and actually in between the phases themselves as well as open space improvements. One of your comments in the previous month talked about open space. They had originally requested increased, providing more open space than was required, and staff pointed out that was not being provided. They are, with this next master development plan, taking that exchange out and replacing it with open space improvements, which would include trails, paved paths, biking trails, lighted paths, things like that. The specific improvements in question would come through during DRT and would be, based on the ordinance, would have to be approved by the planning director. And so that would be an acceptable exchange for the incentives that they're requesting. The school that they've located is about 25 acres in the northwest corner. The staff feels that a school is a perfectly acceptable use in this area. We do have a comment that we would like to see the school a little bit more centrally located to incentivize more walkability over in the area throughout the development. We recommended the eastern side of Phase 7, which would place it closer to the center. It would surround it more with the residential phases, yet also keep it located along the collector road and in close proximity of the major street of the projected outer loop. Also, one other comment from staff was that the collector road that's part of the first initial construction phases, that it would extend down south from Mrs. James Road and dead end into a portion of the east-west that would also be constructed, however, not stretch beyond the eastern and western boundaries of phases 2 or 3. Staff recommends that it needs to extend at least east during initial phases to connect to Keystone Drive that's part of Camden South. That way, those developments that are, it's approximately 160 homes. Actually, I think it's like 360 homes. Let me go back. They are not limited to a single ingress and egress for the first 10 years of this development's life, if it were to be approved. 360 homes would be included in 1, 2, and 3. Other aspects that the comments that we had, all in told, this updated master development plan would negate the planning staff comments 3, 4, 5, 10, and 11, as well as engineering comment number 5. I point that out, should you choose to approve this, or to recommend approval with staff conditions, then you could strike those comments from the conditions. Again, that's 3, 4, 5, 10, and 11, as well as engineering number 5. Staff, however, is recommending denial of this application because of the existing future land use designation of the property, which is rural. Rural designations envision obviously a rural zoning district, which is currently is, with lots of 3 acres minimum or more. The purpose of this future land use designation is a result of the existing infrastructure that's currently there. This area of town is going to be experiencing the largest pressure for growth that we anticipate for the next several decades. However, until we can get the infrastructures to support it, we don't feel that this is appropriate development at this time. This is a map of the general area. It includes this particular what we call the transportation, traffic analysis zone, or TAZ, as well as several other subdivisions that are in the area to include the Preserve, Woodward Oaks, Auburn Farms, all of which take their primary access to the center of town through Donahue Drive. This is not the only access that this area has to the rest of Auburn. North College is still available, as well as 280 and Shelton Mill. However, the preponderance of traffic does go down Donahue Road. And this, all told, once all of these developments are constructed, not including Old Sanford, where's that number? The total number of existing planned units actually equals out to about 5,000 units that would all be using the same roads to get down. Obviously, once we're able to get the outer loop a little bit closer to feasibility and other crossings of the Saugahatchee, this would definitely be considered possible for redesignation. However, that's not the case at this time. All right. So, before I go back to the DDH, is there any questions of staff for the PDD? We'll come back to this, but if anything I've covered about this or the updated master development plan that the applicant has provided.
Let me ask a question which is more relevant to the rezoning than the development plan. But I asked the wrong question the other day, which I appreciate you giving that information because it's very useful, which was how much, what unused capacity of DDH do we have currently? And you gave us that, which was 93% used of the properties already zoned DDH, if I recall. But I should have asked, where and how much land does our land use plan project or designate for future DDH?
Can you ask that question one more time?
All right, my question is, if we're rezoning property that we have on the land use plan as rural, although we don't have a lot of other properties elsewhere that's currently undeveloped that is already zoned DDH, but we're being asked to go against our land use plan. Where else, what, do you have any idea of how much acreage do we have in our land use plan that is designated future use of this type of development, DDH?
I could, well, so I could
not a
get
fair
you
question at
I
all.
could get you a number of how much is of a future land use designation for any designation you'd like. However, we do not have an earmarked number of, the city does not have an earmarked number of currently designated rural land that would need to go to one district or another.
No, but we do have on the land use plan, we have acreages that are overlaid.
Oh, I see.
with-
Oh, for like medium density residential and
Yeah,
everything. Okay.
But
I don't
that's
have the number
unfair.
with you, but I could get that.
Yeah, I know. I should have asked you that yesterday. I forgot. Okay.
But that is a good question. Which I have the answer to, just not here.
Yeah, I understand, and that sure would help me. Okay, thank you. It's my fault.
All right, so, Robin?
No, I'm good.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna back up now to go back to the DDH. Now that we have the
I
general
have
idea of what's going on.
one that has to do with roads. Is there any, does the city have a plan for any kind of widening of Farmville Road at this point? Is that forecasted out yet?
Yes,
She has the answer, just not with her.
yes. I was trying to remember, I think it's in the 3 to 5 year horizon from
Oh,
our
is it?
study, yeah.
And is that gonna be all the way in, when I say widened, is it gonna be this stretch that's near this development, but all the way over to 280?
No.
It goes to
What-
North College?
What we will have on our horizon would be intersection improvements at Farmville and Donahue, which may include dual left turns off of Donahue onto Farmville, maybe a little bit of widening, and some additional lanes. But
Okay.
no widening from Donahue to College.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so, backing up now to the base zone, or base district rezoning request. Again, this is to make all lands that would be part of the PDD application be consistent, which is one of the requirements of a PDD. Specifically, this relates to 670, a little over 679 acres. Same area we were just talking about. This exhibit right here, the shaded area is the land that's currently zoned rural that's being requested for the DDH zoning district. It's interesting to note, and I pointed out in your reports, that with the DDH zoning district, with an allowance of 5.5 dwelling units per acre, this would permit on this property alone, the maximum of 3,736 units. Obviously, like we just talked about, the applicant is not proposing to build that many, but if it were to be rezoned DDH without a PDD, all areas that are undeveloped that would then be DDH could amount to almost 5,000 units in and of itself. So the only, even though we are recommending denial for the exact reasons that we just talked about, the staff has made the comment that should you feel inclined to recommend approval for this, you should also recommend approval for the PDD. And the applicant is here tonight. I know we have to talk about this and do the public hearing for this base rezoning before moving on to the PDD. But now you have hopefully you have a better understanding of what all is related. We have received lots of communication about this request, mostly informational, with some in support and some in opposition. But depending on your questions for staff for the base rezoning request.
Mr. Rice?
Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, this requires a public hearing, and we're gonna look at, first, the, item number 1 in the old business is gonna be PL 2021-00634, Old Sanford rezoning from rural to development district housing, and I'm gonna open the public hearing now. Would anybody like to come speak on this item? All right, seeing no one, close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion in discussion.
Well, I will move to approve item number 1, 2021-634.
Second.
Motion is second. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
I think our staff made a very professional presentation and was very helpful, and they've done a lot of thorough research. And you can call me old-fashioned if you like. Sometimes I take it as a compliment, but our land use plan does not support this. And truly, our land use plan probably needs to be updated, and because of the pandemic and so forth, this woulda, shoulda, coulda thing turned into just didn't. And I understand the dynamics of land use plans. From the day you adopt it, there's things you wish you maybe had done different because of growth and housing demand, but I'm a firm believer if you've got a plan, and this is the official plan as it stands today, is to stick to the plan and adjust yourself accordingly, and I certainly support the staff's recommendation.
I've agonized over this one probably as much as anything in a long time. Dilemma we have here is that we did and I firmly believe in our land use plan, and we put a great deal of thought and a lot of effort in our land use plan. And I think very seriously before we do anything normally that is not tied to and related to that. However, that was done 3.5, 4 years ago. It was supposed to be updated during the COVID epidemic, and we did not get it done. Rapid change has taken place in our city. So, not that the land use plan is outdated necessarily, I don't know. We have not had time to go back and look at that. However, here we have a very well-designed and a project large enough that it can be done well and in the phases, and the amenities that they are providing makes this a very likable project in my mind, a very appropriate project. The only dilemma we have is how much capacity and how quickly can we provide the infrastructure to accommodate the growth. Because, but I think it's worthy of consideration in spite of that, because of the way it has been designed and the way it has been presented, and the way that we do have a demand in our city for quality housing of a variety of types.
And I'd like to agree with both of those positions, really. One of the issues that I am concerned about is how fast this may get built, and then it's going to cause the trouble with the traffic flow and all that sort of thing. We're going to run into some serious problems depending on how fast this gets built out. And it looks like, the way the applicant has proposed it, they're looking to kind of do it faster than. I guess I'd like to have a little more information from the staff on a couple of things. One is, they were talking, the applicant's talking about building out and capping at 170 rooftops a year. And I heard a number of 60 to 148. What does that number represent, first of all?
The 170 is their proposed cap that they shall not go over at any
Right.
given time. The different numbers, the 66, the 148, as part of the master development plan, they have to submit a development schedule that is generally flexible because of the way reality is. But based on that, we can determine, based on the months that they anticipate each phase starting and the year that they anticipate each phase starting, how many units are in each phase. We can use that to then determine the general idea of the number of homes that would be created each year across the life of the development. And based on those equations, the range from the 66 units, and I will point out that these numbers, are based on a calendar that is at best wishful thinking. So, but the minimum 66 would occur in year 14, which would be the final year of the development. The highest that they would be building per year would be 148, which would occur in year 3 of the development, where 3 different phases are going on concurrently. The other years throughout the 14-year time span, based on that schedule, fluctuates from 82 or 70 all the way up to 138 below. So underneath that 148. So it fluctuates every year.
So you're saying they're proposing a cap of 170, but the actual build out is going to range from 66 to 140 something, whatever you said.
Correct.
Okay. So then the other question I would have is, what triggers road expansion, road widening, I mean, because if we get building too fast beyond our infrastructure, that's where we have the problems. And so what I'm interested in is there a way of, we talked a little bit about it in packet meeting, it being some kind of a throttle to where we can say, okay, wait a minute, we're not, we're outpacing our infrastructure.
Right.
How can we, so is that in our process somehow, or is it, how does that work?
The development agreements usually will address that issue. I'll let Allison Scott speak.
That's correct. And one of the things we'll do is, if you and the city council approve this, we'll try to go back and reconcile their traffic impact study to the build-out schedule that's given in the MDP to make sure that the improvements are in line with the pace of the development. But the development is predicated on the city doing certain things at certain intervals already.
Okay. So the city has a way of saying, okay, wait a minute, not so fast. Let us take care of some infrastructure and then let's restart or something along those lines. Might not be using the right terminology, but I hope you get my intent.
I get your intent. I don't really know how to answer that, though. But I understand what you're asking. The city's ability to deliver infrastructure is based on the city council's priorities and how they fund those. My job is to submit those items to the city council to say, we need X improvement by this year based on projections. The city council's purview is to either agree with what I'm suggesting and what the city manager recommends.
But we go
Or
with the
change priorities.
development agreement that's in place.
Yes, but I'm saying
Regardless.
this development has traffic projections based on something the city is planning to do. So if the city
Okay.
doesn't do something, this development could be affected by that.
Okay.
Does that
Okay,
answer
yeah,
help?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Okay.
Yeah, my concern is the traffic. I don't live up there, but the amount of volume I see moving up North Donahue and coming out of North Donahue every day is enormous. And all those people that already own homes up there, this is just going to exacerbate the problem until the infrastructure is there. And even widening North Donahue alone is not going to be sufficient in my mind to solve because there's going to be other developments up there. No matter what we do with this one, we're still going to have growth in a lot of other areas, single-family homes. So I'm leaning strongly towards supporting the planning department's denial recommendation for all three, because I can't see a reasonable solution in coming anytime soon. And I'm just concerned that we're doing a disservice to everybody that's already bought a home up there. So,
Well, and my concern is that the inconsistencies with our current land use plan, so I couldn't agree, or approve.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, and so I would entertain a vote. Let's have a roll call on this one.
Robin Bridges,
Yes.
Bill Chancellor,
No?
Mac Lazenby,
No,
Warren McCord,
Yes.
Bob Reitenbaugh,
no,
Wendy Birmingham,
No,
It fails.
2-4.
Okay. So that means we would, since we can't have a PDD on a rural area,
it's a moot point.
so should we just,
I think it'd be, well, that was the rezoning, so you voted 2-4 to recommend not approving it to the city council.
right,
I would go ahead and vote on the second one, the PDD. It may be the same exact vote tally, but I would go ahead and take a motion on that. and-
okay, handle it the same way. So that also brings up another kind of a procedural issue, is that it requires a public hearing.
Have the public hearing.
So we'll have the public hearing. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through, since you have made the presentation for both of these, let's deal with case number, item number PL 2021-00635, which is the Old Sanford Plan Development District, and I'll open it for public hearing. Wait,
Phil, if I can, I will, just for the record, since we were talking about it. Staff would have, during the COVID test, during the pandemic and all the delays that was created, that there was a planned future land use update that was planned for that time. I'll just
Understand.
point out that there is no guarantee that staff would feel that it was appropriate for redesignating at that
Changing the
time.
use, okay. Okay, so the public hearing is open, so anybody would like to come talk about the PDD at this time, the Plan Development District? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion.
Move to approve. Item 2?
Subject to all the comments
Yes,
plus.
subject to all the
accept-
comments minus the ones we struck. Not that it matters.
Okay, I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Again, we can't put a PDD on a rural property, so,
Let me speak to, under discussion, this particular item. A lot of work and thought and negotiation and compromise has gone into the development of this plan. And in my opinion, in general, it's not a bad plan. It's quite an attractive plan. But I think it's just too much, too fast. And if the zoning had passed, I would have not supported it for that particular reason.
okay. Other discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Robin Bridges,
Yes.
Phil Chancellor,
No?
Mac Lazenby,
No,
Warren McCord,
No.
Bob Reitenbaugh,
no.
Wendy Birmingham.
no,
Fails. Okay, the next item on our agenda is still under old business. This is a preliminary plat for the Sutherland Subdivision, PL 2021-00643, but I have the understanding that is there a representative here for this item?
They provided written requests to postpone.
Okay, they did?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, so I'll make a motion from the chair to postpone this item until a date certain of our next meeting, I assume is what they asked for.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's December,
Ninth.
First,
can't be the first,
Can't be the first.
Ninth.
it's December first. Oh, I'm
It's
sorry. I
December
didn't see it.
9th, right here.
September 9th. So it's December 9th, a date certain to December 9th.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, postponed till next meeting. Okay, now we're to the consent agenda. And the items here are the packet meeting minutes, as we mentioned. There's the Owens Estate annexation, PL 2021-0723, and those are the only items on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as you've described with the minutes of the packet meeting and the regular meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. And now we're on to new business. Item number 6, which is a rezoning from rural to DDH on the Coxwire Road area, PL 2021-00630. Ms. Robertson,
I feel like I look like a floating head. Just a second.
that's all it looks like. There you go. Oh, there, that's better. Now I
Oh,
can see
she's
it.
growing, look.
That's right.
Oh,
All right, there we go. Okay, these next 3 cases are similar to the ones that Jay just described. This is 3 requests. The first request is a rezoning from rural to DDH. The second request is a PDD designation. The third request are the conditional uses. And I'll just start with the very beginning. The request is to rezone 49.14 acres, currently zoned rural, to DDH. The property's located at the southwest intersection of Cox and Wire Road. A majority of the area was annexed in '95. The property across the street, the silos, was annexed in 2016, a portion of it was, and the remainder was annexed October of last year. That is zoned LDD with a PDD overlay. The future land use is master plan mixed use, which was recently changed last year with the Cox and Wire Road focus area study. It had previously been rural. So the future land use designation of master plan mixed use allows a broad mix of uses, but it's contextual to the area that surrounds it. The request, here's the, here is the future land use. You'll see the area, it's kind of hard to see, it's outlined in red, but it's also red. At the corner, surrounded by master plan mixed use where the silos is, as well as adjacent on the east side of the property, that is the Swan Farm development, currently in the county. And that also includes the limited residential, which is below that. On the western portion of the development, it is rural. And in addition to the 2 existing master plan mixed use designations, a larger portion, probably our largest PDD in the city, College Crossing, is off of Wire Road in the vicinity. A majority of the area is comprised of agricultural lands, large lot residential lots, a few commercial uses north of the property, and probably the most dense residential would be the College Crossing PDD, as well as the silos at Conway. DDH, if you maximize that density for the 49.14 acres, that would result in 270 dwelling units. Similar to Jay's request, this is in conjunction with a planned development. They are not proposing to maximize that 5.5 dwelling units. They are proposing a 3.34 density, which is about 60% of what the 270 units is for the property. As I mentioned, the silos at Conway has a density of 1.42 dwelling units an acre, which is on the lower side for a planned development. And College Crossing has a density of 6. So this is generally in line with the area at a 3.33 density, which they are proposing. Staff does recommend approval, forwarding to City Council with conditions mentioned in the staff report. Particularly, since this is in conjunction with a PDD, we recommend approving this with approving the PDD as well. And I did not receive any communication regarding this case, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Baskman, would you like to have a word?
Sure. Can you cue up my presentation? I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail, give you a little bit more detail about the development. Katie did a good job of kind of giving a brief overview of the development. I'm going to just go into a little bit more detail and kind of explain what we're doing. I'm going to walk through these. You know, we kind of have 3 different items, and there's 3 separate conditions. Some of those conditions overlap, but I want to address some of the conditions just to make sure we're all on the same page. Like she was talking about, this is a 49 acres, approximately 8 acres of commercial and 41 acres of residential. We're in compliance with the future land use plan. The proposed use here is really more of an age-in-place type product. It's a quad type product. We're proposing to age restrict this to 55 plus per the federal guidelines. You know, with the 55 plus, the amount of traffic generated by senior-related products is much less. It's less than half of the traffic generated by a traditional single-family residential unit. You know, 55 plus people are going out and going out in more social type stuff. They're not going to work every day, primarily coming to and from. You don't have school-age kids, so you're not impacting the schools, and you're also not impacting and leaving for recreation, parks and rec type facilities for ball games and that kind of stuff. Well, there'll be a homeowners association. The homeowners association will actually maintain the exterior of the homes. It'll maintain the clubhouse, pool, amenity areas. All the landscaping and everything will be done. So essentially, you know, you live there and all the exterior maintenance is taken care of for you. We're proposing this to be private streets. Because it's private streets, we wanted to be able to have this gated for security purposes and for and plus that age target tends to like that. But because we have gated streets, makes these private streets. So this is actually considered a multi-unit development. Even though these will be sold as individual units, it's considered multi-unit, and it'll be sold via the, you know, condo ownership. It'll be, each individual will be a condoed unit. In the development, we are proposing an enhanced road section through there. We are proposing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the streets. Traditional single family, you only have to have 1 4-foot sidewalk on one side of the street. We're currently showing over 40% open space. It includes a club and pool house. You can kind of see a centralized area there in the middle where we have pool and clubhouse, walking trails, fire pits, you know, that kind of stuff. And like I said, the traffic associated with this, with a 55 plus community, is less than 50% of what we would expect to see from a traditional single family residential project. We do have a natural stream that kind of separates the residential from the commercial areas. In the commercial areas, we're proposing an assisted living facility along with commercial uses and a commercial development up at the corner. here's some pictures of similar type product that has been done in the past. It's this quad type product. This is a typical kind of quad floor plan where the garages are interior to their shared. It's approximately a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, master on the main. There's an option to have a 3rd bedroom on the 2nd story. You can kind of see where there's outdoor patios. They'll have the option for those to be covered as well. And of course, they'll have a kind of their own yard adjacent to their outdoor patio area as well. Staff has the 55 plus age restriction language that we were proposing. We sent that to staff. I included in this, if you're curious on how that reads, but we're just following the federal requirement for that. And then on the assisted living piece, it's going to be something very similar to what was just done at the end of, across from the new high school, at the end of Sanford Village Court, the assisted living facility there. And that's just some pictures of the existing one on the exterior and then on the interior. In regards to the rezoning to DDH on the restrictions there, in regards to the vehicular or pedestrian cross-access recommendation there, the nature of having the gated streets and having the gated and the privacy that we're trying to get there, having vehicular access kind of prohibits that. In addition, we're trying to save the stream and not have to mitigate the stream for environmental impacts. So we're proposing that we will provide currently there's an 8-foot multi-purpose path on Cox Road on the other side of the street. Typically in the past, if you have a multi-use path on one side, you don't have to provide a sidewalk on the other. In this case, we're proposing to connect the residential portion up to the commercial with a 5-foot sidewalk in the right-of-way. So in regards to the pedestrian connectivity, we are looking at ways to potentially try to cross that creek with a pedestrian bridge or something like that to connect the residential to the assisted living and commercial facility. We can probably do that closer to the street. We can probably do that, but we planned on putting a 5-foot sidewalk in Cox Road to connect these, so you could walk from the residential component up to the commercial. So that addresses the conditions that I wanted to just be clear on our position on those conditions on the rezoning to the DDH. I'll come back up and discuss the other ones once we get to those. But happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. This requires a public hearing, so would anybody like to come speak on this item? Please come forward. All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's-
Motion is second, any discussion? Okay, all those in
Okay.
favor? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, next item is PL 2021-631. It's a related plan development district on the same property. Ms. Robeson?
That's correct, and Brett's already talked about most of it, so I will just follow up with, same property. I wish we could zoom in just a little bit. The configuration of the property now, it's mostly vacant or undeveloped with a vacated dwelling near the new roundabout. The stream does bisect the property. The southern portion of the property is pasture lands and forested property. The proposal does show 164 units. They are quad-type style houses as well as a few duplex-style houses. It is age-restricted, 55 and older. We do have that language included in the staff report that he referred to, the federal requirement to meet that stipulation. They are proposing a very large amenity towards the western portion of the property. One of the conditions of approval that was not included in the staff report that I mentioned yesterday at your packet meeting was to include some sort of pedestrian pathway from the straight street adjacent to Cox Road that leads up to that amenity area. Maybe down the center of those units. And to incorporate more of that stream that does bisect the property. I believe that condition is in there. They are proposing the assisted living facility, and I think it would be a benefit to both the assisted living facility residents as well as the 55 and older residents to use that stream as an amenity. And then the 20,000 square foot commercial component is at the point of the property, adjacent to the roundabout. And the other condition of the PDD was to relocate that parking to the rear of the commercial building so that it's kind of shared with the assisted living facilities parking. I think that covers most of everything.
Can you clarify, though, what you said about the pedestrian path? You said that it's not, because I don't see it here.
Right, I did not mention that in the staff report. I
Maybe that's the
failed to
plan.
include that, but we had discussed it previously with the applicant to just add, and you can't see where I'm pointing with this pointer, but from the Cox Road area to the amenity portion, right there.
Because Mr. Basquin talked about having the sidewalk that's gonna go along Cox Road, so you're talking about something different.
Internal to the
It's
development.
internal one, okay.
Yep.
And can you, somebody on the clicker over there, can you put the cursor on where that's supposed to be, near the detention pond and going across, or?
Who has the?
Okay, I'm seeing it right now. I just wanna kinda get an idea where you're proposing that.
I think in general, if you can show it up there, it was probably from left of the word Cox at the bottom, Cox Road.
Yeah.
And then
then
just going
north.
straight up toward the open
Well,
space,
not
somewhere
north, but
through there.
up.
And
Oh, that way, okay. I thought you were talking about going over to the
No,
facility.
just internal for the
Okay.
residents to use to get to their.
I remember the discussion now, okay.
Has that been
Yes.
agreed to with the proponent?
I don't believe there's been further discussion on that. They did provide more open space than is necessary. 30% is required, which equates to a little over 14 acres, and they have provided 17 acres of open space. I just think it would be beneficial for the development if they incorporated some of the stream into their amenity package.
So that would
And-
have to be part of a motion, we'd have to bring that in.
That is part of the conditions of approval. That is mentioned in there.
And we're working on item 7, 00631.
No,
That's
Your
correct. And
recommendation,
that's,
your recommendation has no conditions.
it does. The comments are towards the back of the,
Yeah, I'm looking at it, but I don't see
Doesn't
it.
say with comments on the front page, but the comments are there.
something was lost in
Okay.
translation because we do recommend approval with conditions.
Sometimes we need a little help on the front page.
That's right. I apologize for that.
No problem.
Okay,
And the development schedule is in the written component of the MDP. They are scheduled to do half of the residential units in approximately 2 years. The remaining half of the development for the residential, ending in December of '26. Then would begin on the institutional use, which is the assisted living facility, and finishing up with the commercial component in 2026. I'm happy to.
Katie, two questions.
Yes, sir.
Unrelated. The first one, are there any other 55 and over communities in Auburn?
I can think of one,
there's one up by,
the Legacy
Cary.
at Cary Creek.
Right, Cary
Okay.
Creek.
Second one, I bought more bags of pecans than I care to admit to from a pecan farmer in this area. Is this on that property?
It is due north of this property,
She's,
due north. or this development is due north of that property.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
All righty.
I have a question, Katie.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Can you, when you say incorporate the stream into the open space area to be accessible, what does that look like exactly?
Possibly eliminating or relocating one of the units on the south side of the stream, just so it's more accessible to the development, to the
Gotcha.
residents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then, Mr. Baskin, you said you were gonna come up again later, so come on up.
Yeah, just want to talk through a couple of those conditions.
Okay,
You know, really, the only ones I think that we have a concern with are the planning ones. So the first one is, locate the commercial parking so that it's screened with a building is not visible from the intersection. I mean, I think if we do that, we're really pigeonholing ourselves on really what uses we can do here. You know, we typically see a street fronted building in a more closer into town, especially the way this property is shaped. We're pinched near the corner there. So if I have to put a building between there and the parking, I really can't really have a building for about 200 to 250 feet away from the intersection. So the building's going to be way away from the intersection with how I'm pinched at the corner, up near the roundabout. You know, we're trying to maintain the flexibility on our potential users. I know during packet meeting, there were some discussions about a gas station. You know, the likelihood of a gas station at this location is probably slim to none. You're going to have the new Buc-ee's down there, and there's 4 other stations in the area. So from a gas station perspective, that's not the use we're looking for. This is kind of an aged-in-place product with the ALS facility there as well. The thought is that the retail associated with this is going to be stuff that's going to be driven towards supporting those users, whether it's, you know, doctor's offices or yoga studios or, you know, something that's geared towards the neighborhood uses here, not necessarily, you know, like, you know, something that's more intense or something like that. We just don't see that in there. That's how we feel like it's being geared. We did initially have another curb cut. The city asked us to consolidate our curb cut with the ALS facility, and so we have done that. You know, we're showing about 20,000 square feet, so the likelihood of that being one building is probably slim. It's probably going to be multiple buildings. But again, the commercial in this area is really green. It's going to take a while to get there. And so we would request to have some flexibility in that, especially at this intersection. You're really not screening it because of the odd angle of this intersection. It's pretty much going to be wide open from any position that you come from. The second one is, you know, we don't have a problem in incorporating, I mean, we're including the stream as part of our open space. It's going to be used. That's kind of the way we've set up the whole thing to work. There'll probably be walking trails and that kind of stuff to be incorporated in that on both sides, on the residential and on the assisted living side. And then thirdly, the page left here, because north is actually to the right, there's a pretty good grade change there, and it's heavily wooded to the left there. And we've been trying to preserve that natural buffer between us and that, you know, future rural, you know, the rural future land use that's in zoning to the left of us. And we've tried to keep a pretty good buffer there and trying to leave it undisturbed through there. And so the pedestrian connectivity that they want through the middle, kind of splitting up the road there, there's only about 1,100 feet from road to road, left to right, internal to our development, 1,100 feet. So if I'm in the middle there and I want to walk around, all I'm having to do is worst case is walk 500 feet one side to catch the side street and go. You know, on an age-restricted product, part of the concern is safety, connectivity, walkability, and those types of things. Not too many people like pedestrian paths cutting through people's yards and walking through people's yards through the middle of the development here. To achieve what the city's wanting us to do and connecting a driveway through there, or a pedestrian path through there, we'd have to shift everything 30 feet to the west and reduce that undisturbed buffer that we have to the left there against that rural zoning. And so we feel like providing the 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street is providing the connectivity and the pedestrian access to the amenity areas, and don't feel like that is needed. That's our opinion on that. I don't see neighborhoods, single-family residential neighborhoods similar to this that have pedestrian paths that carve up between 1,100-foot block lengths. I just don't see it. And so we would just request that that condition not be placed on you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, well, this requires a public hearing, so would anybody like to come speak on this PDD? Please do now. Come on forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion and
Mr. Chairman, I'd
discussion.
move to approve item 7 on the agenda with staff comments and conditions.
Now, do we have to, if that's gonna require us to add that other condition, right?
I would think so, yes.
So,
It's included in the motion.
and that's the
That's our comment.
pedestrian pathway?
Did you intend that one, Mac?
Yes,
The
I
one that I
did.
verbally
Yes.
added? Okay.
Through the
Yes.
middle here,
Yes.
okay.
And the reason is, in these 55 and older, especially the older, good exercise is having a place to walk, and for it not to be too long, because I'm getting now that I can walk further than I can walk back, and I've got to be careful that I select my routes, and this would be an ideal dissection of that flexibility. I think it's a good staff suggestion.
Well, that was the motion. Do we have a second?
We haven't had a second yet, so I can't.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, so let's have a discussion.
Okay. I, with all due respect to the recommendation, I know that what the petitioner was asking, meaning that people just don't like people walking a few feet from their kitchen window. In other words, I'm not see the feasibility of this, really, that particular requirement. As I said, the streets are 1,100 feet long at max, as I understand it, and I'm not sure that that would increase circulation enough that it would not create more difficulty in the minds of some of the people that would live there. So I'm a little concerned about that one. That's the only one. I have no problem with the parking, trying to avoid parking in the front of the commercial on the end of the, to the, what is that, east, north?
Well, it's the north, actually. North is right.
Anyway, but that one I can see, I could, but,
Waiting for that.
but I threw out, if there's anybody that agrees to that, I would offer amendment to the motion.
I agree with you. I actually, with all due respect to the staff, I would choose not to require the first two conditions plus the verbal one,
So,
but that's
so
me.
we have to have a motion for an amendment here,
I
so.
know. I'm just telling him what I would
Okay.
do, so he knows what to do.
What are the
if
first
he
two
wants
that you're
to amend
talking
it.
about that?
Yeah,
The commercial parking,
Oh. And what,
and the connection, sorry. Number 1 with the commercial parking, and number 3 about the incorporating the stream into the open space area.
oh,
And the verbal one that you just addressed, so.
yeah, so we have, there's,
a mess.
When we say incorporate the stream into the open space, that, you're suggesting that requires something like another walkway or pathway where they're gonna have to somehow spread things out a little bit and get in there?
Possibly,
Okay.
but I think Brett did point out that they were possibly going to incorporate trails, walking paths
Yeah.
with the stream, so.
So do we have a motion for an amendment, and what is that?
That we recommend to City Council for approval, subject to all comments and conditions, staff comments and conditions, except the pedestrian pathway
East-west.
east and west, and that's as far as I would go, but if, with the exception of that one, that's the one I would make. So that's the amendment that we recommend for approval, subject to all conditions and of staff notes, and with the exception of the pedestrian pathway.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on an amendment. Okay, any discussion on that?
Yeah, I think I've expressed the reason why, and I feel like we ought to support the staff and their recommendations in their study, and
Okay.
Question?
Comments? Okay. All right, well, let's, so we're making, having a vote on the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Those opposed say no.
no.
Okay, so the amendment carries. So now we're back to the original motion as amended. And we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote on that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries as well. Okay. Everybody got that over there? Good.
Think so.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving along here. So now we're talking about the conditional uses on the same property.
That is correct. The final component of this project are the conditional uses, and they are requesting numerous blanket conditional use. I can go through them if you'd like.
That's
I
not
can-
necessary.
Okay. Institutional uses, I'm just gonna do the categories. Institutional uses, several road service uses, which I will point out that a gas station is being requested. If you guys think that that is not appropriate land use at this location, that's not part of the, approval motion,
Right.
recommendation. So if you do not think that's appropriate, please say so. Let's see, commercial entertainment uses, office, and I believe that's all of them.
Okay,
All of those uses would be located on the northern portion of the development. Gasoline station is proposed to not be included. We
That was-
recommend
Is
approval.
that a staff comment?
It is noted in here.
Yeah, I don't see it here.
Under A.
Clarification.
Yeah, the comments are on page 4 of 5.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. 3. Oh, you found it?
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Anything further?
We don't have a problem removing the gas station. That was
Okay.
an oversight on our side anyway, so
Okay.
we're fine striking that if we want to. On the conditions, they're pretty much all in line, pretty much with what was already previously approved, so no big deal.
All right, thanks. Okay, this requires a public hearing. Would anybody like to come speak on the conditional uses for the Cox Road wire development? Please come forward. Seeing no one, close public hearing. Ask for a motion and some discussion.
Move to approve item 8 on the agenda with staff conditions and comments.
Second,
Let me, got a little tail end on that thing.
my apologies.
No, that's all right. Appreciate your second. But we are eliminating the condition of a service station, I think, is,
Right.
if I understand it correctly.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to clarify that in the planning comment related to include a connector vehicular preferred between the commercial assisted living and the residential development would cause, is that still included in that is part of the recommendation? But is that preferred over leaving that creek? That's the only way they'd have to make a vehicular access to it, wouldn't it? Be over the creek?
I believe since you struck that condition in the previous item, that would carry over, but I would also include that in,
The motion.
if you're wanting to remove that, to include that in your motion.
Well, with the, I know it'd be nice if they're going to visit and not walk, they'd have to get out on Cox Road and come in at the other exit. But at the same time, we were looking very favorably on that creek and it being an amenity, and I'm not sure that it would benefit from having a bridge or being culverted so you could put a vehicular pathway over it. So,
Mr. Chairman, so in any recommendation that you make on this, if you can clarify again, I think if you want to remove the requirement for vehicular bridge connection, that's one thing. And then if you're still in support of a pedestrian crossing, then just make that clear as well. There's no ambiguity, so.
Okay, so we'll have to
Okay.
have an amendment then.
all right,
You wanna
Then I'll make
give
a-
it a try.
propose an amendment that case number 00632 be recommended to City Council for approval, subject to all conditions and comments of the staff, with the exception of vehicular access between the commercial assisted living and the residential component.
Second.
That's a motion and a second on an
On an amendment.
amendment. So any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Amendment carries. Okay, back to the original.
But we included a pedestrian connection?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just took vehicular
Okay,
out.
but
Yeah, so that should be good.
the director said we ought to state it specifically.
Okay, now back to the original motion. Now, what about the gas station? Because I don't know that we struck that.
No, the motion was we tried to make it very clear that the gas station was excluded from that motion.
Okay, that was in the motion. I
That's right.
just
And
didn't
the only thing
remember.
we amended was eliminating vehicular traffic
Okay.
across the stream.
Okay, with that said, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, on to the next one. This is Plan Development District Amendment, Hamilton Place, PL 2021-00716. Mr. Kipp.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a request by PSM Holdings LLC and TD Development Incorporated. They're represented by Brett Basquin, Foresight Group Incorporated. It is a request to make an amendment to a planned development district, an existing PDD, in order to add approximately 4.21 acres. The proposed development consists of 40,000 square feet of office use located at the northeast corner of Hamilton Road and Ogletree Road. The subject property is zoned, has a variety of zoning going on. Its base zone is LDD. The Hamilton Place Shopping Center is zoned PDD, and a portion of the property is within the Conservation Overlay District. Here is an aerial showing the current site conditions, more or less. You can see the public shopping center with additional retail and gas station on the corner. The proposed land to be annexed, not annexed, but added to the PDD is being outlined now. There's currently a single-family home there. Believe it's unoccupied. A little bit of history about this request. It's very similar to one that you saw back in August of 2020. There was a few different changes and amendments to the site plans that were presented. There was a rehearing granted, and they were able to come back in last year with a revised site plan that showed a new roadway being put into place. They are coming back to you because 12 months has elapsed since the first time you heard the request. And here's the original PDD. It was approved in 2008. And here is the revised PDD that they're requesting the amendment to. The future land use for the property is conservation subdivision cluster residential. That would recommend either a conservation subdivision or one home per acre. And staff is recommending denial of the application because it does not conform to the land use plan. The only other thing I would add is if you are inclined to recommend approval of this, kind of by way of adding more square footage to the overall development, it would reclassify the shopping center from a neighborhood shopping center to a community shopping center. The intent there from the applicant is not to add any new, beyond what's being represented here of 40,000 square feet of office. The intent is not to add any additional commercial or build out the shopping center any larger than what's being presented here. That said, if there is a desire to approve or recommend approval for the amendment, staff would proffer the condition be that no more than 125,000 square feet be developed. Happy to answer any questions. And we did receive 6 emails in opposition, essentially listing the same concerns you heard last year and the year before.
Any comments, Mr. Basquin?
You zoom in on that first one. So, yes, we're back before you, this time live and in person. Last time was in Zoom. All the different ones were in Zoom, so made it challenging. All right, this particular site, again, I'll just kind of give a brief overview on this, is, you know, when the Publix was developed, the access for this parcel was removed from Moore's Mill and had to become internal to the Publix development for driveway spacing. And so that driveway is removed, and that's part of the connectivity between this piece and the Publix center. Now, the future land use shows this as the conservation cluster with the 5 acre minimums, which our parcel is smaller than 5 acre minimum. But you know, to the north of us is the new church that was not consistent with the future land use plan and was approved. And we're kind of wrapping in and kind of creating that natural transition from this creek that's on the east side of us, between us and the rest of the rural property to the east there. You know, when we're looking at step-down uses from the back of a Publix loading dock to single-family residential is not compatible. And we feel like, you know, traditionally we use office or townhomes as a step-down use between a heavy commercial and a residential use. You know, in this particular case, because we're in the Ogletree watershed, performance residential uses are not allowed. So really, office is the mechanism we're proposing to step down from the back of the commercial into the you know, future residential to the east. So there is a natural buffer there with this stream on our eastern property line. You know, in the past, we've worked and had offered several meetings with the neighborhood, met with some of those with my client, and met and discussed some of their concerns. When we originally came in and got approved in Planning Commission for this particular layout, one of the objections was the driveway wasn't aligned with Bent Brook. And so that was one of the arguments. And so when we went through and got approved here and went to council, that concern was with the safety of that offset intersection. At that time, you know, traffic study was done and provided by us, as well as the city engineer performed a separate speed study and crash study of this corridor, and provided a memo to council that essentially gave them the information that those weren't essentially concerns as part of that. It got turned down at council, and so we immediately turned back and brought back in the layout with the driveway aligned with the neighborhood like we were being asked to do, and everybody didn't want it aligned with the driveway either. So it's kind of darned if you do and darned if you don't. I think the feedback that we heard during the latest iteration with Planning Commission was that they preferred this layout and interconnection and using the shared driveway. And so we're back before you again tonight to try and obtain approval for the office use here. Yes, it is 40,000 square feet. We are still proposing to use the buildings at front. Moore's Mill, we're still proposing, you know, part of this architecture was developed and coordinated with some of the members of the neighborhood there, where it made it more residential feel. That's the back side of the offices facing Moore's Mill, so that it looks like a front and not a back. You know, we're still proposing to go by that on the buildings that are on the Moore's Mill frontage. Again, we're only coming here to get office approved. There can't be any expansion to the commercial uses, can't be expansion of anything else to come back before you other than building the site-specific offices that we have, you know, the office use that's outlined on this 4.21 acre parcel. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this requires a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Anybody like to come forward and speak on this? And once you're done, can you please sign in on our little list right there?
Absolutely. My name is Ernie Merritt. I live at 2492 Glenbrook Drive, which is the adjacent neighborhood straight across the street. First of all, thank you for your service to our city and to our residents. I thank you for that. Obviously, this is something that's been going on for quite a long period of time, as each of you are very aware. We have, obviously, as a resident of that neighborhood straight across, I've written each of you and obviously stand before you and ask that we support the staff and ask that this not be continued. We are all for residential. We have no issues with any residential use of that particular property. The current concern I have as a resident that living in that area is you're talking about anywhere from 140 to 180, and I don't know the exact number because the square footage has now changed from the 32,000 that it was last year to the 40,000 I believe it is now. What we don't really know is how many true parking spots will that be, and then the impact of that traffic that's in that area. If you've been down that road anytime soon from anywhere from that 7:30 to the 8:30 time frame, or if you travel in that area in the 4:30 to the 5:30 timeframe, it is an extremely dangerous area. And now you're adding another 140 possible parking spots, cars coming out that are coming out in an off-centered turning direction, creating some serious concern around safety. There is some concern around the watershed. I know that some of that's been discussed. I'm not educated enough to really spend a lot of time talking about the impact down, but you are talking about adding 40 more thousand square feet of rooftop to include asphalt, to include parking spaces that could ultimately impact the watershed down, as we have a lake or a retention pond in the back of our neighborhood now that is already overflowing with the impact of the developments that have had up north of us, that's had an impact down south of us as we go down the road. This obviously has gone before the council, I believe, more than once. It went to the council the last time. I know there was a lawsuit filed. I think that lawsuit's now been suspended to go back before you, as it has cleared the year period. What I'm asking for all of you is just to consider the residents that live in that area. The development or the land comp plan for 2030 clearly calls for that to be a residential area. Adding it to a PDD, most of the time when you look at a PDD, it's a planned development. There's nothing been planned about this. This has been added on to the back of a Publix. I heard earlier we were talking about a good roadblock or a good transition from the back of a loading dock. There are more than one in the city right now where that's already occurring with residential. You don't have to go any further than the back of the Winn-Dixie on College. There's a neighborhood being built right now, right behind it. So there's nothing wrong with residential. Quite candidly, we already live behind it. We live right behind a CVS, and every house in there lives right behind that CVS. There is a lot more traffic that's been going on in that area. The city has now approved another restaurant that's going to be going in right behind the CVS, that's right in front of our neighborhood already on the other side of the road, which is creating more traffic. So based on all of these things and these discussions, and based on the recommendation of the staff, I'm here to ask that y'all consider denial once again for this particular request.
Thanks, sir. Who'll be next? Hey.
Good evening. I also would like to state that I agree with what Mr. Merritt.
Oh, can you give
My
her-
name, yes, my name's Andrew Price. I work. I live at 2575 Glen Brook Drive in the Bentbrook neighborhood, and I've lived there for approximately 9 years. And I have a 16-year-old daughter, and who's just now driving, and a 13-year-old who will be driving soon. And I want to just reemphasize the challenge that we have leaving our neighborhood. It's an extremely busy street. Our sight line to the east, you think of it being south because you go that way to head south out of town, but is generally more east than south, but it's extremely short. And if you think about the decision frame time you have to make to exit the subdivision, it's extremely complicated. You have a limited sight distance to the right. You look to the left, you have oncoming traffic from the Ogletree Hampton subdivision. You also have traffic leaving from both the Publix entrances and the CVS egress onto the street. If anyone sat there to watch how the traffic works, people actually come to the Publix exit. Sometimes the furthest east exit behind the loading dock, because they think that that's going to be easier to egress out of there than the more busy end toward the red light. But it's extremely difficult. You have, a limited sight distance to the right. You look to the left. You have to make a split-second decision. Now, if we increase that decision difficulty by adding another busy entrance from the proposed office space, it's just another category of risk that you're adding to this already difficult egress onto Moores Mill. I'm one of the 3 HOA board members, and I know that we pay over $1,000 a year to pay for trash pickup in our neighborhood and along our right-of-way on the front of Moores Mill Road. And I personally go out and along with other neighbors to help pick up the trash that blows into our neighborhood from across the street. And actually been in communication recently with the city about the increased amount of garbage that we are receiving in our entryway that then blows through our subdivision. And I actually recently picked up garbage from the property across the street, where as the city maintains the right-of-way with bush hogs, it releases this garbage that is coming from outside of our neighborhood into ours. You know, again, just thinking about the land use plan and how this does not agree with the current long-term vision, I would ask you to vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening, I'm Bob Greenhall, 2486 Glen Brook Drive in the Bent Brook subdivision. And I would like to request, if we could, to go back to the diagram. Who's controlling the diagram?
Which one you want to look, which one you want to look at?
I want to back out so that we see the Bent Brook area across the street from that whole development behind the CVS and
If you got
across
an
the
aerial
street
of it, that'd be good.
from this property. No,
You want the aerial, you go to the
I
aerials.
think the one before that.
There you
Yeah.
go. Got it.
This is a good illustration. One of the first reactions I had to this.
can see this
over
up
a year
here.
ago,
Let him
Yeah, I just want
choose.
you to get a little closer to the microphone, because we're
Oh,
gonna have to hear.
Yeah, okay. You can see that one of my first reactions when this all occurred initially was that I just assumed, when I purchased my house in 2010, the year we won the national championship,
War Eagle.
War Eagle, and I looked across behind the Publix, and I saw this property, and I thought, well, I wonder what's going to happen to that. When you buy a home, you sort of put yourself down in a spot and you say, okay, I can live with that, and I can live with the low-flying approaching and departing aircraft that are coming over my house, which they do. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, there could be a continuation of developments of a commercial property, PDD or whatever, extending out behind the Publix. I wonder how far that would go or should go logically, because you people are logical. You spend much time with all this, and I'm a novice, obviously. Well, I looked behind the CVS where we are, and I thought, okay, somebody here was involved in the proposal to initially put our neighborhood, which I think is a respectful, nice place to live. We love it. And how far out, you certainly wouldn't come back in later and put more business or office space or whatever on the other side of us continuing on out there, because there are already nice neighborhoods right along there. And I'm thinking, okay, how far behind the Publix side of that would you go before you thought, well, this is just really weird to have all of these business properties extending out that road with us on the other side of the street, because we're going to have to enter. And to tail end what they were talking about with the traffic coming down that street, down Moores Mill toward Publix from outlying areas, the speed limit, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it's 45, and the speed limit does not go down for a long time which is great on hours that there's no traffic on the road. You know, I'm going my 45 and I'm having a good time. But a lot of the day and into the night, folks, there's a hill, and you can't see that there if you've never been out to this area, and you're sitting there coming out of our neighborhood facing Moores Mill Road. If you look to the right, you better look to the right. Well, if the bushes are not covering your view, you have to inch right up because there are bushes that are nice-looking bushes that we have. You have to come right up to the road, and these cars are going wham, 45 miles an hour in both directions. And I'm thinking, what if there were a business across the street from this spot that I'm waiting to enter Moores Mill? And I'm thinking, what would it look like? They gave us a very nice picture of what the rear end, we would be facing the rear end as we exit our neighborhood of some of those businesses. That's a beautiful picture. If it were not business, I would say, great, I'm all in favor of it. But the traffic flow already coming in there, and this was the reason it was denied, I think, at the council level, was because it just another cut in the curb there, or I don't think there's a curb now, but there would be, would just be crazy. And it was a little offset from our road coming out anyway, and it would cause just havoc. And I can see people trying to get out on either side with the 45-mile-an-hour people coming through there. And I would say, as an ancillary note, that the 45 limit, because of that hill, those people that are coming up the hill and then down the hill, zeroing in on the next intersection, they can't really tell, if they're not familiar with what's going on, the fact that we may be trying to get out on Moores Mill Road and so forth, and run down. They're going 45, and they look around. There's no speed limit asking for a 35 or a 30 or whatever it is. I would strongly suggest, whatever happens on this project, that be decreased. It's already a severe problem to me, and if you've ever come out of our neighborhood, you know what I'm talking about. So you've got invested what we consider to be a nice neighborhood.
Wrap it up there,
And
sir, because your time's up.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I thought that would be residential, and people would see that it should be residential because of our neighborhood already extending back there. Just the other side of the road would continue to be residential, and I apologize for going over time, but I do get involved in these sorts of things.
All right.
And once again, whatever the outcome, I really appreciate your service to this community. I'm proud to live here. Thank you.
Can you please sign in? Thanks. Sir, in the back there.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Wells, 1115 Blackman Circle in Bent Brook. I just want to support everything that's already been said. I would ask you to vote not to change the zoning, to leave it as it is. For the safety concerns that have been brought up, the environmental concerns with the lake that's in Bent Brook, and then it's going against the comp plan 2030. That's, it's not zoned for that. In terms of what people have already said about it being a dangerous intersection in that area, because you've got a high rise on Moores Mill coming down into the Bent Brook area. It is a dangerous intersection. The accident's been there. One of them, in fact, was a rollover. So it's not something to just be, shoot under the bed in a way. It is dangerous. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sir.
Hi, my name is Kristen Forthofer, and I live at 2547 Glenbrook Drive. I'm just here representing my family in opposition to the Hamilton Place PDD. My husband would be here with me as well. He's coaching youth sports right now. So my first concern is driver confusion, as they have been saying, the opposing left turns. The map really doesn't do it justice because it doesn't give the topography and giving you like the two hills on either side. Because the site distance is limited already. I have 3 children, and one is about to turn 16, and the other one is 14. So it's obviously grave concern to me. Also, in other notes, this obviously you guys don't know that, or you do know that it does not conform to the land use comp plan, that planning staff recommended denial, and that per staff comments, it is, quote, not designed as an integral part of the master development plan. It converts Hamilton Place, it would convert Hamilton Place to a community shopping center, which would allow for up to 500,000 square feet of retail or commercial development. It sets a precedence for a further community shopping center development down Moore's Mill to East Lake. Also, driveway alignment does not meet past requirements or city standards. In 2008, during the meeting for the public shopping center, BZA approval for the 3 shopping center driveways of the development, the applicant and an Auburn employee stated, quote, "The third access point is for service vehicles only and does not meet the driveway spacing requirement either. This driveway is needed to allow proper delivery access to the building," end quote. Approval of the driveway spacing was based on it being for service vehicles only. Shouldn't this proposed share use of the driveway for office use require a new BZA approval, since the original approval was based on it being service only? Okay, so then I just have 3 questions for y'all to ponder. First, does the city of Auburn want the precedence of approving these types of PDD amendments? Because you would be setting a precedence. Number 2, what is to prevent a landowner in the future from adding additional current rural zoned property into this PDD that can reach from the intersection of the Moores Mill Hamilton Road all the way to the entrance of East Lake? And 3, is it good practice to add on to a PDD when the desired plan has no relationship to the existing development, the traffic conditions are much riskier, and it is only requested because the property's standalone zoning district, a non-neighborhood shopping center, does not allow that use? Thank you.
Will be next. Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Ask for a motion and discussion.
Get that, do we do that before questions?
Yeah, let's make the motion.
All
and
right,
talk
well,
about
I
the
will
motion.
move to approve, item number 9.
Second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second, so let's open our discussion.
How many homes could there be if it were homes?
Yeah, what's the max density? That is a question I was gonna have too.
The maximum density just on the base zoning would be 8 single-family homes. This would have to be a conventional subdivision, which requires a 70-foot wide road frontage unless it's on a cul-de-sac. So at best, they could get 4 home sites or 4 lots.
So 4 in real life.
Yeah, the applicant may want to speak more to, what's actually practical, but
Got it. And then another question I had was, maybe for Allison, trip counts for residential homes versus offices. I feel like we talked about, and I don't need an exact number, but just a general statement. I believe I recall that we talked about that the last time we voted on this.
Residential generates about 10 trips per unit. And I apologize, I don't remember the number for office use. But based on the
What if?
trips for parking. So, but based on the proposed square footage of office, it would not require a traffic impact study based on our thresholds.
What's the, refresh my memory, what's the zoning to the, what is that, the east? I guess it's north-south. What's to the east?
to the east is rural.
Rural, okay. In the comp plan, what's the land use plan say about this area? This property and to the east, I'm kind of interested. Well, it's going to stay rural.
The future land use designation is conservation, subdivision, cluster residential
For this property?
for this property.
Okay. What about to the east?
Likewise.
Okay. And then one of the speakers brought up a real interesting piece of information, that this, the public's property went for BZA and this curb cut was approved as a service use only? Without, anybody know anything about how that, any details on that?
From what we've understood, that was not specifically stated as a condition of approval. It was mentioned upon reviewing the minutes for that case. A city employee that presented the case on behalf of the property owner, specified that that's what the intended use of the curb cut would be for, but it was not explicitly stated that that was a condition of approval or anything like that.
I'd like to ask Brent a question. Why did your client increase the square footage of offices from the last time? Because all our traffic studies, all our agony that we went over that was based on a little lesser.
Well, we originally submitted at 40,000 square feet of office, and with an expansion and I think we asked for like 25,000 square feet of expansion on the commercial side. That was what the original request was. In talking with the neighbors and everything, in that we reduced it down, and we were willing to go down to 33, and then we removed the commercial expansion requirement. And so at the end of the day, we whittled this thing down, thinking that we were negotiating in good faith to move forward, and now we've been stuck in the ground for another 12 months. So when we came back at the original request of 40,000 square feet. In regards to the traffic and trip generation that we're talking about out there, when we're talking about the vehicles exiting that driveway, based upon the counts and the projected trips, you're talking about less than 25 people turning left out of there during that peak 1 hour. I mean, the volumes out here are during the peak hour coming out of this driveway are very low. The counts we have coming out of that driveway, turning left, I would think would be the concern out of that driveway. In the existing condition, there was, in the peak hour, there was 2 lefts out of there in the morning and 10 in the PM. And then projected with our traffic, there's we're in the AM 3 coming out and 17 in the making that left out of there.
That's existing.
No, existing.
Projected.
Yeah, projected total. So existing, there's 2 people turning left out of there in the morning and 10 people turning left out of there in the afternoon, in the peak hour, right?
You're talking about with the office development.
No, existing right now, what Publix is doing right now.
All right.
When you add in, the Publix and the office, we're talking about 3 people turning left out of there in the morning and 17 in the afternoon, in that peak hour, in that 1 hour peak hour. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about it's very low volume. The site distance stuff that was mentioned, the city went back and did site study, they did a speed study, they did a crash study, okay? And they took that back all the way back. The crash stuff was back to 2017, okay? There was 1 crash at the Bent Brook exit. There was 1 crash where the driveways are aligned at the CVS driveway aligned with Publix. Those are the 2 crashes there from 2017. The speed study showed that 45 miles per hour was the appropriate speed based upon the 85th percentile speeds out there. And, the offset driveway comment about not meeting city standards, it meets city standards. City engineers stated that at city council. So just want to clarify those points to make sure, I understand the concern of that, but the offset driveways, You know, there's offset driveways all over the place, but there's adequate sight distance based upon the 45-mile speed limit, and the city proves that and provided that to council.
Before you go, maybe I missed it, but your answer to his question. Now, we've got a history of what happened, but I think his question, and you may have answered it, but why? When we talked about 34 before, did you go to 40,000? We know you did, but the question I thought was why you did that.
I mean, we were going back to the original, going back to the original request. You know, I think that, you know, we offered to meet, we tried to work with them, we changed architecture, we did all these things, and we were negotiating in good faith, got whittled down to 33. We would prefer to get the.
I remember some of the Zoom meetings, we talked about these traffic counts and stuff being done during the pandemic. And we're still in that. I don't know if we've got truly a real accurate traffic count. It's accurate for what we've got, but if it's reliable because of the pandemic.
Well, I mean, I think Allison have seen enough traffic studies or the counts over the course. I think the original conversation on this one was that we took counts in the summertime and did projected them up, and then we came back and redid counts to confirm whether we increased them enough to account for the non-summertime.
I think Allison has the experience to do some of these without so many counts even. Thank you.
All right, well, let's get back to our deliberation here, so. Okay, are there any further discussion? I guess I have a question, I'm not quite sure who to direct it at. What's the impact of growing this from a community to a neighborhood to a community? Should we approve this PDD amendment, it's gonna grow it to a community shopping center? What's the impact? Like, so what?
Pretty much. It's more
Especially if we add the recommendation or the restriction that it not go above 125,000 square feet, which is what was Katie recommended in the beginning, right?
Right, and
which is what you recommended in the beginning.
Right. So just by definition of what is a neighborhood shopping center versus community shopping center, they are tied in the zoning ordinance to specific thresholds. And so really just as a means of cleaning up the site, if it were to be approved, clarifying for the record that they're not actually becoming a community. Technically, yes, they're becoming a community shopping center, but they're not. The request is related to the office and those thresholds.
So potentially, could they, acquire the land farther to the east and incorporate that into an even bigger, 500,000 square feet?
What's represented here is what would be locked in through the master development plan. So any changes to that would require another amendment and another conditional use process.
And particularly if we add the caveat that it be limited to 125,000 square feet total. In other words, if this was granted with that stipulation, then it cannot.
Not
grow
without an amendment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, is that part of this package? Is that introduced here? Is that something that?
It is a
If
staff.
we're entertaining, is
Yeah,
that?
it is a
It's a
staff.
staff recommendation.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it here.
Clarification question for that?
Yep.
No, sir, the public hearing's closed. Okay,
Motion in a second?
we have a motion and a second.
Did that motion include the 125,000 square foot limitation?
It's, well, under the analysis it is.
Was that included in the comments?
Yes, under,
Said it out loud.
it is number one, allowable square feet.
Okay,
Be maximum 125.
Yeah,
okay,
it's-
I was
it's-
thinking she added that, okay.
That's in there, so it's with staff comments. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No. Let's have a voice vote, please, roll call.
Robin Bridges.
Yes.
Bill Chancellor.
No?
Mac Lazenby.
No.
Warren McCord.
Yes.
Bob Reitenbaugh.
No.
Wendy Birmingham.
No.
Okay, the motion fails.
other thing is moot.
So the other one becomes moot, as you mentioned. So the next one is gonna be conditional use, Hamilton Place, PL 2021-001-717. And this is the conditional use.
Yes, sir. This is same property, same application. The use of the property for offices is not permitted without going through a conditional use process and as part of either a neighborhood shopping center, commercial shopping center, or as part of a PDD. Therefore, without the plan development district moving forward, staff recommends denial for this application as well.
Okay.
And here's the site plan.
Okay, this still requires a public hearing in spite of that. So I open the public hearing. Anybody would like to come forward, please do. Seeing no one, close the public hearing, ask for a motion and discussion.
I'd move that item number 10 on the agenda be denied based on previous action of the previous agenda.
Okay, a motion for denial. Have a second?
We can't pass it, we got to.
Okay, so without a second, we'll, I guess we need to have another motion.
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second. Is there any discussion on this? I guess the main discussion is that we have not approved the PDD, so this becomes moot.
And the second thing, if I understand it correctly, and I may be mistaken, but this access goes through the Publix.
Right.
And we sent that to council, and they disapproved it because of that. So this configuration has already been turned down by the council, and they're the final authority of what has been done. And I don't think we ought to send it back to them the second time for the same thing they've already denied. So that there would be two reasons I would have to not support the motion.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Okay. We've,
It doesn't go back because it can't, I'm confused about why we're voting on it. So, I mean, it wouldn't go back regardless, correct?
sure will.
Yeah, you are making a recommendation
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it is
to
gonna
city
go
council,
back,
so
but-
it will be heard at city council.
Because they could approve the first one.
Got it, thank
Right.
you, yes.
Well, then let's, real quickly, let's discuss the complications here, or the implications here. Does that mean, since it has been recommended for denial, that it would not, that the PDD be amended? Does that mean then by voting to approve this, that
Wait a
the
minute, wait a minute.
offices?
We're not, it's recommended denial by the staff. We're making a motion one way or the other.
All right, but the previous one, the recommendation for approval failed,
Right,
okay? So the PDD amendment failed.
right.
If this is approved, if we recommend for approval this conditional use, does that mean the conditional use could be placed there?
No.
Without being part of the PDD?
No.
Well then, okay, so I'm not sure, okay, why we're doing this, but.
It's just a formality
It's
at
a
this
formality at this
All
point,
right.
yeah. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No. Motion fails.
And just for folks in attendance,
I didn't mean to leave you out there.
happy
No,
to
not-
answer any questions, or I can give you email or phone number if you have any questions for us.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. We are now on item, let's see, item number 11. This is an annexation request by the Auburn Industrial Development Board, PL 2021-00718. Amber English.
Yes, sir. This should be a step-down case for you. So as you mentioned, this is a request by the Auburn Industrial Development Board for annexation of approximately 5.78 acres which are located on the south side of Corporate Parkway, west of Riley Street. It's a tongue twister. This request would typically be on the consent agenda, but it is accompanied by a rezoning request, so we have included it under new business. The property is contiguous to existing city limits on the west side, property zoned industrial, and then there's a small portion of property to the south zoned rural. And the petition meets the requirements for annexation, and staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you.
No public hearing.
There's no public hearing on this, so can I have a motion, and we'll have a.
I'd move to approve item
Second.
11, as presented, by the owner, by the applicant.
Can you second that?
Bob, second.
Bob, second. Okay, any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, this is a related item, the next item, which is a rezoning request, PL 2021-00719, also Auburn Industrial Board recommendation.
That's correct. It is the same subject property of the previous request, approximately 5.78 acres, to be rezoned from rural to industrial. The applicant plans to subdivide the property and construct a communications tower to serve the public safety. The future land use designation is office park, commercial, and industrial support, which the industrial zoning district is in line with, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. This requires a public hearing. Anybody who'd like to come forward, please do. Seeing no one, I'll close that public hearing and ask for a motion and discussion.
Motion to approve PL 2021-00719 as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay. Item number 13. This is a preliminary plat for Cotswolds Phase 4, PL 2021-00736. Mr. Kipp.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a preliminary plat approval of a subdivision plat consisting of 117 single-family detached lots, 3 open space lots, and 1 lot for proposed outer loop right-of-way. The property owners Richard Starr and James Starr, represented by Barrett Simpson. The property is located at the western terminus of Cotswold Way, located in the DD8 zoning district. You previously heard a few months back a request for Cotswold Phase 3, which would be just south of the subject property boundary. This is Cotswold Phase 4. The subdivision plat meets or exceeds the subdivision regulations of the city of Auburn. Therefore, staff is recommending approval with all comments and conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Representatives? Okay. Okay?
Yeah, answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this requires a public hearing. Anybody would like to come forward and speak on this item?
Yes, I would.
Come on up.
My name is Justin Patton. I live at 2516 Tetbury Court, which is directly adjacent to the property there. The Richland corridor where we live on is pretty heavily overdeveloped at this point. This year, we finally started seeing some issues, especially with everyone coming back from COVID. The first 2 weeks of school, we had the mayor, the police chief, the assistant police chief, school representatives, and public safety representatives on that corner down there almost every morning, trying to resolve safety and traffic issues with getting people in and out because of so much traffic that's coming down that Richland corridor. At that time, the recommendation that we've been going with that worked is we are opening the schools at 7 a.m. We actually moved up the opening time for both Richland and Creekside. So for this development in the neighborhood, I have no problem. I think it's a good plan, and I think it's a good subdivision, and we should put it in there. The timing, I feel like, is potentially a little bit unfortunate because we do need some continued development on that Richland Road down through there. I feel like we're now using public school funding to pay for the amount of traffic that we're having to deal with to come down through the Richland area. So it would be nice if we could delay this until we could build some type of improvement to that Richland. There's an arterial access that's been proposed, I believe, that connects up to Farmville or down to MLK that we still haven't gotten to as well. So all for the development. I would prefer that that be delayed until we can get better road access and better traffic flow down through there to alleviate some of the traffic and safety issues, and especially to not increase cost on the school district down through there as we try to travel through that area in the morning. Thank you.
Yeah, please sign in. Thanks. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and discussion.
Let me ask an administrative question if we can. Plats require a number of votes, not just a majority of those present, but they have to have 5 votes
I'm affirmative.
to pass. Is that correct?
Correct.
I would ask, let's get a motion.
I move to approve. Number 13.
Second?
Motion is second. Discussion.
Yeah, in reference to the question in the public hearing, how much closer are we? You had some engineering plans done and getting ready to go out for construction, I think, for a section of that road. Just, if you would please just give us an update.
So the plans for the connector road are very close to being completed. I am still working with AlDOT on final approval for the connection to Highway 14.
So where would that be? Where would the connection be? I mean,
If he was referencing what we're calling as the Richland Connector, it would come across from Creekside School, the westernmost entrance, and go through the property known, it came to you as the landings. I mean, not the landings, the Plainsman Lake, I'm sorry, and would tie about 900 feet east of Webster Road. Where the Chinese restaurant is, it would be east of that. So it would run pretty much from Richland Road down to MLK.
so the blue, let's see, the blue line?
Blue line.
The blue or the red?
The blue line
The blue.
on the map you're looking at,
Okay.
just east of Willow Creek.
Now, is there anything what's the red, what's the difference between the red and the blue then? What,
The red is the classification. If it's dotted, that means it's proposed. So that's a dotted blue, meaning I think that road will be a collector.
Yeah.
If you go to the west, that would be the outer loop that we were talking about on a prior case with Old Sanford. That's the south end of
oh,
it.
so
from
the
Richland.
the difference in colors they're both proposed, but they're different types of roads.
Different classification,
Okay, I
correct,
got you.
yes,
Okay.
I'm very glad to see the one on the left at least showing up on a drawing.
absolutely.
Any projection on start date on any of that?
On the connector
Yeah.
road, as soon as AlDOT gets through doing AlDOT and we get an approval, I'll have a better idea of
Okay.
when
Do
we'll
they
put
have
it
a
out to bid.
specific holdup, or is it just their process?
Yeah.
I mean, because I think you'd submitted it some time ago, or
I did.
talked with them some time ago.
I did. We received a second round of comments about a week ago, and so the consultant and I actually had a conference call with them today.
Good.
We thank you for what you're doing and hope to
Very
soon
timely.
get it
Very
under
timely.
construction.
Well, Mr. Chairman, one of the, I agree with Mr., was it Patton or Potter? I can't read my own writing, it's still my note. Patton, Mr. Patton, there is a considerable issues of problems out there, the problem, traffic and so forth, overload. The problem is, we do not have a moratorium, and this proposal, this subdivision meets the technical, or exceeds the requirements of our subdivision regulations, so I think we're pretty well need to approve it.
I think the condition is that the overall commission needs to approve it, but an individual may
Oh, yeah.
vote their conscience. Sure.
So that's where we're at now. Let's have a vote. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries. All right, now we're on to item number 14, which is PL 2021-00542, Embrace Church. We have seen before, as I recall.
Yes, this is a revised conditional use request for an institutional use, being a church, located at 2142 North College Street in the DDH zoning district with a planned development district designation. This site is in the Tuscany PDD, not to be confused with the Tuscany subdivision, which is separate, but was originally approved as a church in 2017. During that hearing and that request, the site was proposed to be a 16,250 square foot facility. Construction was not commenced on it. However, because it's in a PDD, it did not necessarily expire, and so it is still valid. However, the revised plans, as you can see, the site itself has been cleared in this aerial. This was the original that was proposed in 2017. The revised plans are proposing a 30,000 square foot facility. A little over 18,000 square feet of it would be constructed as the initial construction, and there is room for an 11,000 square foot expansion, which would, the two combined would get up to 30,000 square feet. The changes from the previous application to this one, especially in regards to parking, is fairly minimal. Even though the size of the facility is growing, the overall number of attendees to a service are only changing minor. So the parking is changing just a little bit, but not significantly. The site itself, you can see that they've reoriented it a little bit, worked with the parking plan. They have provided a landscape plan that does provide a significant amount of buffering to the south against the residential neighborhoods. Staff feels it's appropriate and would accommodate the buffering mix of uses as it would be appropriate. Have not received any communication in regards to this. Believe the applicant was tied up with a previous trip that he's not able to be here. Pending your questions of staff.
Thanks. Okay, this requires a public hearing. Anybody like to come forward and speak on the Embrace Church? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion and discussion.
Move on approval item 14 with staff conditions.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item, number 15, it's a conditional use request, PL 2021-00738, Sons Ford parking lot. Ms. English.
Yes, this is proposed to be located at 114 East Veterans Boulevard in the Comprehensive Development District, zoning district. The lot's approximately 30,000 square feet and shares access with an existing hotel to the south on Spirit Drive. The area is, the property owner wishes to, or intends to store and display vehicles for the adjacent Sons Ford automobile dealership located here at the corner of East Veterans and South College. The commission did approve or recommend approval of a conditional use for this site previously in February of 2020, and that use expired this year in August. There was one note that staff recommended changing one of the comments. I left a handout by your seat.
Oh, that's
And
what
we
that was.
recommend amending condition number 2 to state that the landscape treatment along Veterans Boulevard should be extended to the west property line. I don't think we've included the landscape plan, but currently it looks to end about right here. The proposed number of plantings do meet our minimum requirements. However, staff feels the plantings along Veterans should be spread out a little more, and additional shrubs would be beneficial for providing increased screening. Other than that, staff recommends approval, and we received no communication.
Any comments, Mr. Basquin? So as part of a motion, we'd have to add that adjustment to the staff comments.
You can just say that you'll amend it to what we've provided to you.
Okay, this requires a public hearing. Anybody like to come speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Looking for a motion. Discussion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve TL 2021-00738 as presented and with the additional shrubbery comment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 16, conditional use request, PL 2021-00739, Nashville wire expansion. Ms. Robinson.
Yes, thank you. This is a request from Third Generation Auburn LLC for the expansion of an existing industrial use, particularly manufacturing. It's located in the Auburn Industrial Park at 1955 McMillan Street. It currently occupies 2 lots. And the addition will be going north of the smaller building. You can't see it, can't see the dot. It is roughly 23,000 square feet. Staff does recommend approval with conditions, and those conditions are to include both properties on the site plan, to do an administrative subdivision to consolidate the lots, and to revise the project data so that it reflects both lots, items on both lots. And we did not receive any communications on this. There is a representative from the Industrial Development Board present. Ledge could not be here this evening, so if you have any questions, Arndt will be glad to answer.
Okay.
Like that.
Thank you, Arndt. Okay. This requires a public hearing. Anybody would like to come forward and speak on this? Seeing no one, close the public hearing. Ask for motion, discussion.
I move to approve item number 16 with all staff conditions.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, item number 17. This is an appeal to waiver denial. Break Landing, PL 2021-00740.
Yes,
Frazier.
what's contained in your packet is an appeal to a design and construction waiver that was denied by my office, and you have the supporting documentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
This requires no public hearing, so let's have a motion and any discussion if necessary.
Well, I move that the appeal not be granted. If that's the
Second.
correct way to word it, how do you,
We'll take that. We can work with
okay,
that.
all right.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
I failed to mention the applicant is here, and did you want to, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Oh, we're already in the middle of our motion, or vote. How do we approach that one? My
I think it would be
discretion.
appropriate for the public aspect of any type of consideration of an appeal to allow certainly
But he's a
the
representative.
appellant to.
Well, you're a representative for this? Okay.
Yeah,
come on
it's
forward.
his application.
Give us a little input here while we're deliberating.
I appreciate that. My name is Mike Marr. I work for Precision Surveying. We're representing S&P Housing. I had a whole bunch of slides. We've been here a long time. I was sitting back there thinking, I feel like Officer Olby in Alice's Restaurant. I got all these colored glossy photographs with the circles and arrows and the paragraph in the back of each one. Heck with them. So, yeah, what to be used as evidence against us. If I give away my age. So question for you, if I may be so bold. One of the discussions in packet was about the history of the building that was torn down. Do I need to tell you anything about the process and how that came about?
No, sir.
Good. So we're asking for the appeal to the waiver. Essentially what we're asking for, we've been working with this property since February, trying different types of configurations to get a house to work on that property. And we came up with townhomes. We have to go with townhomes to get the density you have to have on that piece of property in that zone. If we go with twin homes, we can't meet the FAR and the ISR. So there's a lot of things that have gotten us into a corner on the townhome. So effectively, there's two things I want to say. Number one, we're kind of backed up against this limit for the parking that we've been working on since February. And this is one of the last hurdles we have to cross to be able to do it. Secondly, looking at the way that the design manual is put together, it's predicated more towards a commercial type of a parking lot outline. If you see the standards that we're being held to for the design manual, it's what you would see in an apartment complex or a retail store or a restaurant or something like that, those offices that Brett was proposing on Moores Mill Road. I have done literally thousands of site plans, and no single family detached home has the amount of back out area that is required in their design manual for these single family attached homes. Understand, it's not a multifamily development we're doing, it's not an apartment complex. They're single family attached homes. So what we're asking for is the forbearance on that design manual of about 4.5 feet in the worst case and about 1/2 foot on the best case. The lot gets narrower as you go west. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, we're backed into a corner. Number two, it is more residential to have the lots configured the way we have them. And thirdly, one of the things that we really tried to do in this process was to get away from being an ADDU. And effectively, by using the design standards, we're looking more like an apartment complex, which by definition would be an ADDU. So in a certain respect, we're actually more likely to appear less ADDU-ish than if we were to use the, if that's a word, if we were to use the design manual. That's just in a nutshell, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we still have a motion and a second.
Call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. How do you want to proceed with that?
Call the question, just
That means we have to vote. We voted to.
favor, all.
All in favor?
Motion is to deny.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No. Yes, I'm opposed, so that would be a no. Just on an island
You said
tonight.
it differently this time. I'm getting
I know, right?
Sorry about that. Okay, so that'd be 5-1 motion. Motion is carried.
This is a first.
Okay. Other business. This has to do with our calendar. Mr. Foote, any comments on that? I guess we talked a little bit about it at packet meeting, and we just have to be here to vote and approve it, right?
Yes, sir. We're just asking for the planning commission to basically accept and adopt the dates for 2022 for your meetings. Really, the rest of this is mostly internal dates that pertain to the planning department, but certainly we want you to approve the regular meeting dates.
It's still the second Thursday of every month?
Yes, they are, in spite of the fact that I said December 1st earlier. Sorry.
All right.
And despite the fact today's Tuesday.
Exactly. No,
It's in spite of the fact that today's Tuesday
the
instead of Thursday.
caveat with all this is that if, as you're going through 2022, something happens, we discover something that wasn't reflected, it's not in
We'll
stone, we
change it.
bring it back, we
Got
can
it.
change it. Yes, sir.
All right. I move to approve the calendar for 2022.
Second.
Second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. And let's see, I have no communication, anything from the staff? Okay, we're adjourned.
Where's the restroom in this building? That's okay.
Yeah, go for it.